Hello, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV, and this is Leia.
Hiya.
Today we're going to be taking a look at the basic rules of sailing. Leia's going to be on this boat. This is Hobie 16 number 4. I'm going to be on the boat with the green sails, and we're just going to go through the basic rules of the road. Okay, yes, that's right, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV, back on the Hobie 16, and we're just going to have a little look at basic rules for sailing. So in sailing, the right side of the boat, this one, is known as starboard, and the left side of the boat, the other one, is known as port. And incidentally, these are represented by colours. Starboard green, which kind of says to you go. Port red, which kind of says to you stop. So if you are sailing like I am here, sitting on the starboard side of the boat with the wind coming over the starboard side of the boat first, this is what's called being on starboard tack. This is different in certain other languages, like I know in Dutch and perhaps in German it's different, but we're going to stick to English here. So this is starboard tack. Okay, and if we're on the port side of the boat with the wind coming over the port side first, then this is what would be called being on port tack. So the reason we have rules is to prevent collisions, and the most important thing of all is that we do what we can to avoid collisions. Okay, and then one other fundamental thing, to make it easier to avoid the collisions, we can do this by always looking around, knowing where everybody else is on the water, and then by thinking ahead. So here we're on starboard tack, and there we can see Leia's boat is on port tack. So in this situation, the boat on starboard tack has right of way, but the right of way boat has to stay on the same course, and then the give-way boat has to alter course, like Leia did there. She just turned downwind slightly, altering course, no collision. So again, we can make it a lot easier and smoother by thinking ahead and knowing what is around us at all times. Okay, so now we're on port tack and Leia's on starboard tack, so it's up to us to steer around the other boat, but it's Leia who has to hold her course so that it's obvious to us which way we need to turn. Okay, so here we are once again on port tack, so it's up to us to avoid the collision. Okay, so now we're on a downwind course on starboard tack, and we are on a collision course again, but because we're on starboard tack we have to hold our course, and it's Leia on the other boat who has to alter her course to avoid the collision. Okay, so now we're on port tack, Leia's on starboard, so we need to alter our course to avoid the collision. And there we go, collision avoided. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is if two boats are on the same tack, then we're going downwind here, Leia's going upwind. It's the windward boat, which is us, that must keep clear. So in this situation we'll just sail around the back. What we can do with windward is we could think of that as nearer where the wind is coming from. Okay, so at the moment we're just sailing past this big catamaran. That big catamaran is to windward of us. Now, this next big catamaran down here, he's further from where the wind is coming from. So he is called to leeward of where we are, or leeward. We're sailing upwind on port tack, and we can see just up here Leia is sailing on a beam reach on port tack as well. So now Leia is the give way boat, we're the right of way boat, so Leia has to sail around us. And in fact she's ducked around the back of us because we had right of way there. Okay, so now we're side by side, and Leia is sailing a little bit closer to the wind than we are, which means we have to turn upwind a bit more as well, because we are the windward boat, and the windward boat must keep clear. Okay, so here Leia's going upwind, we're coming downwind, but Leia has right of way, so we're just going to head up there. Perhaps that was a little bit late to be heading up, and then if we wanted to continue where we were going, we could slow down and then continue going down this way. Okay, now we're coming upwind, Leia's going downwind, and Leia's had to head up there because we had the right of way that time. And there we are. Okay, so here's another situation, especially if we've got boats of different types. An overtaking boat must keep clear. So we're behind at the moment, and this laser is clearly going a bit slower than the Hobie 16, so it's up to us just to alter course and make sure we keep clear. Again, this is all a lot easier done if we think ahead and we know what is around us at all times. Okay, so here's another situation. We have a power boat in front. Power gives way to sail. But in a situation where it's a lot easier for us to avoid the collision than them, like perhaps they didn't have their engine started, then it's easy for us to keep clear of them. So we've established that power gives way to sail. So a boat with an engine gives way to a boat with sails. But there are some times when it isn't right to expect a boat with an engine to give way to you on your sailing boat. For example, it might be a fishing boat who's working. It might be some sort of tour boat which is working. So if it's a working boat and you're just out cruising, it's more polite for you to stay out of the way of them. If it's a boat which is a very large boat, like a ship which is in a channel because of the depth of the water, then again you should stay out of the way of anything that is very big and restricted in its ability to maneuver. Okay, so up ahead you can see that Leia has actually capsized. So a boat which is restricted in its ability to maneuver, obviously we can't expect her to change course, so we have to change course to make sure that we don't have a collision there. Okay, and all of these right-of-way rules, they apply to everything with a sail. So if it's a dinghy, if it's a windsurfer, if it's a yacht, if it's a kite surfer as well, it's all the same. If it's got a sail, then the same right-of-way rules apply. Of course, with windsurfers, on a day like this where it's not windy enough for the windsurfers to really get going, it's much more polite just to give them a lot of space and don't expect them to stay out of the way. Okay, so the main thing when using the rules is if you're not in a competitive situation, so if you're not racing and there's no need to shout at another boat because you want to keep going, then everybody should be friends and friendly on the water. The main thing about sailing is it's about having a good time, so don't go disturbing somebody else's good time just because you can. Do it if it's necessary, but if it's just because you can, then everybody should be friendly to each other on the water. But with all of these rules, if you are sailing in close proximity to each other, do make sure that if you are expecting another boat to keep clear, that they have noticed that you're there, and it might be worth just a little friendly hello, starboard, are you gonna, yeah, okay, thank you, something like that, just so that you know the other boat is going to keep clear. Okay, so there we go. Thanks very much for watching. I hope this has been useful.